Hey, well, welcome everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are. Really excited to have you all with us. Going to have a conversation with Ryan, our development consultant at Dharma Voices for Animals. Uh, yeah, really excited to just get to know you more and help other people get to know you more.
Yeah, welcome everyone. Thank you for being here.
I guess first, Ryan, do you want to tell us a little bit about what you do for Dharma Voices for Animals? I feel like development consultant might be a little, um, people may not really know what that is.
Yeah, it can be very vague term, development. What are you developing exactly? So the term I use usually is fundraising. That's what I do. My job is to look for people who might, you know, be potentially aligned with our mission, our cause, and who might have the means and will and inspiration to support us financially and make a first contact with those people, interest them in having a meeting with us and discussing possible partnership. And then it's all about, building that relationship and strengthening that relationship with donors. Um, and of course, giving is not only about money. It's also about volunteering. Some people gave up their time. Some people gave up their knowledge. Some, help introduce us to interesting people. So even if there isn't, a financial gift at the end of this correspondence, there is still something worth, you know, creating that relationship for. Yeah,
Yeah, awesome. I love that you said it's about relationship building. I think that's really important to highlight. Like what you do for our organization is help us connect with people and help us uh, just better align ourselves with people who are interested in our mission.
definitely. And I should say, I'm also a donor. I, was a donor for DVA before becoming a part-time employee and doing fundraising. And so I can easily put myself in the shoes of a donor and have this perspective on DVA. Yeah,
And so I guess you were a donor before, which means you obviously have been interested in Buddhism and veganism in the past. I guess, can you tell us a little bit about how you became vegan and maybe your personal journey there?
that's an interesting question. I don't know why I became vegan. I feel like I was born with a certain degree of sensitivity towards the animals around me. And I, always had that peculiar relationship with them. One of my earliest childhood memory was of me feeding the stray cats in my neighborhood um, against the wishes of my family, because of course they looked super mean. Those cats, they had an eye missing, part of their tail missing,
Oh.
an ear missing, and they had claws. And my family was afraid that I would catch some disease from feeding them. But here I was, gathering the leftovers from dinner and going outside and feeding them to my uh, night friends. So I always had that. Um, and uh, it came to a point where I wanted to become vegetarian because I had made that link between the food I was eating and animals, animal lives. Um, I expressed that wish at 14 years old, but I became vegan when I turned, I think, 18 years old. I like to say that I matured into veganism because I spent my legal major, adult life, my entire adult life as a vegan.
Wow, that's incredible to know from such a young age that you want to be vegan and that you're connected to animals.
Well, I mean, it wasn't, my wish in a way. I think that veganism chose me. I did not choose veganism. I felt compelled to become vegan and to feed those cats and to care for animals around me. Just part of my nature.
Wow. Do you still live near the stray cats, or do you have cats of your own now?
Well, I do attract lots of stray animals. One person said once, "You're like Snow White. They're all, coming to you, the animals." Um, but
Gosh.
yeah, I there aren't that many stray cats in my neighborhood, but currently I have a cat. Cat I adopted years and years ago. She's a very old cat.
Oh,
Um, and a couple of birds I rescued. Um, and they are true villains. They say birds are the descendants of dinosaurs. I completely, this does not surprise me. I believe it. So yeah.
oh my gosh. That's fun. That sounds like a fun crew you have.
Well, one of the bird likes to eat my books. And that gets and you know makes you kind of nervous and angry at times. Like, what did I get myself into? Why? But you remember, um, why you rescued them in the first place. And so, yeah, there are downsides to rescuing animals, of course, but you need to remember, why you did it in the first place and focus on that.
Definitely. That's incredible. I guess on the flip side, so now we know a bit more about your background, and your love of animals and how veganism found you. Uh, did Buddhism find you? Did you find Buddhism? What was your journey on that side of things?
Well, I always felt um, intellectually curious about Buddhism. It's a religion that always fascinated me because it is very counterintuitive. Um, and let me give you an example. Uh, for instance, the Buddhist idea of freedom is to find satisfaction in your current, conditions. It's to be free from desire, is to be free from the craving. But intuitively, we think of freedom as having more choices and always more options. And so it really goes against those cultural norms and that common wisdom we all have. Maybe another example of an intriguing Buddhist idea is anger. I was always taught that um, if you felt angry, you needed to express that outwardly, like you need to take a pillow and punch that pillow or something like that. Then you come across Buddhism, and it talks about keeping that anger in and not letting it, take space. Again, very counterintuitive, very, goes against common wisdom. And so I had that intellectual interest and I read about it and I listened to Dharma talks. But it's only when I was about, I think, 19 or 20 years old that I started practicing Buddhism. And the trigger for that was a mental health problem. I was diagnosed with a major depression. And when you're facing, that kind of health issue as a college student, you don't have many resources to address that problem. It's not like you can get, regular visits with a therapist, and then your doctor will prescribe you, antidepressants, but those come with a long list of side effects that can be scary. And so, really, out of desperation, I remembered Buddhism, and I thought, why not give it a try? I always, was curious about it and fascinated by those teachings, but I never took them seriously enough to practice in my daily life. And so I gave it a try, started meditating, uh, took the 5 precepts, and it worked. It really helped me go through that difficult period of my life, and it felt like a to take a word from Christian lexicon. It felt like a miracle. It felt like Jesus curing the blinds or something like that. How can teachings from 2,500 years ago um, um, have this power in my life? Can how can this teacher, the Buddha, understand the issues I'm going through in the year 20? I think it was 2017, 2018 at the time. I don't remember, but yeah, this was the proof for me that uh, those were worth pursuing, and that it was worth practicing on the Buddhist path. And since then, I haven't looked back.
Wow. I definitely understand. I think there's something about Buddhism that just really and the practices and the centering of compassion that is very healing. I think a lot of people feel that way and are drawn to Buddhism because of that. It's it's very interesting, like you said, how it's still relevant even thousands of years later. We're still connecting with it.
Definitely. And it doesn't have to be as ambitious as, I think that at first I did not have the ambition of curing myself, like um, healing from my depression. I thought of it more as, uh, will it help me live a productive life with the pain I'm going through? So
Mm,
just being able to carry on with the pain. And just that was, you know, um, a great gain for me, to be able to wake up, leave my room, leave my bed every morning, and lead my day, despite the pain, despite the mental pain. So just for that, Buddhism impressed me.
yeah, absolutely. And do you think that there's kind of a natural merging of your, um, I guess, your predisposition to veganism and then you're finding Buddhism? Was there like a clear coming together of the two, or did you kind of have to work to connect those interests and belief systems within yourself?
Well, veganism came first, but I always felt like veganism and Buddhism were a great fit. Um, it's it's fascinating that experience of going through a major depression um, left me with lots of insights. I learned a lot from that experience, from that pain. One of the things I learned was that um, the the actions I did for others out of a generous heart um, brought me a level of happiness, a level of peace, um, even in those dark moments of depression.
Mm,
Um, so whenever I would volunteer, um, I felt that lightening of the heart. And whenever, I thought of eating a meal and of the animals I was sparing through that practice, I also felt kind of a lightening of the heart. And so, yes, I feel strongly that veganism and Buddhism go hand in hand. And later, I became interested in exploring if there was a historical basis for vegan beliefs in Buddhism. And you find that quickly. Buddhism has a rich history of animal welfare and caring for animals, starting with 200 years after the time of the Buddha. We had Emperor Ashoka, who was the emperor of India as we know it today, and he was quite a ruthless monarch, quite a ruthless emperor until he converted to Buddhism. And then there's a stark contrast on how he started governing. And of course, one of his greatest legacy were his edicts about animals. Um, he erected enormous stones all across India, inviting people, to live a kinder life towards animals. Um, I think he, if my memory serves, um, I think he created a special day every week when uh, people were forbidden from hunting. I think he encouraged people to reduce their intake of uh, meat, of animal products, and he did much more. But you see those first, signs of how Buddhism can be transformative in bringing people to care about animals. And then, of course, there's a it doesn't stop. Historically, uh, I could talk about so many other episodes of Buddhist leaders or Buddhist stories that invite people to be kind towards animals. Another one would be from Kuan Yin. There are so many stories of Kuan Yin, this Buddhist goddess in in the Mahayana tradition, who comes in a village, fishing village, and invites people there to abandon fishing and start eating, a plant-based diet basically, and survive on the product of the earth instead of the product of the sea. Um, Quite incredible when you think that those stories were told like centuries and centuries ago, way before the vegan society and all of that. And so, yes, definitely Buddhism and veganism go hand in hand.
It's incredible to see that it's progressed in this way too. You can point to history and say that they've always been lined up in this way. I guess, does it ever, I know personally it frustrates me sometimes to see like, oh well, it's so clear Buddhism and veganism are linked and they make sense together, and yet today we have so many Buddhist centers and organizations and practitioners who don't see the link. I don't know if you find that similarly frustrating, I'm sure, or what your thoughts are around that.
Yes, definitely. This resonates with me. I do believe that they should put a greater effort. I would think that Buddhists and Buddhist leaders have a place at the front line of this fight for animal rights, for animal welfare, and so on. But they're absent. They are kind of absent. Um, but it's yes, it's about animal welfare, but you can point to other problems that Buddhist traditions have. For instance, the place of women monastics,
Mm,
nuns in religious traditions. So many Buddhist traditions do not make place for nuns when there should, if we look at the first earliest teachings of the Buddha, he always had the intention of creating a male and female monastic orders that complete each other. Um,
mm,
uh, there's also the question of the gay community. There are some traditions that are hostile to the gay community, and you think, where is this coming from? This is not coming from the Buddha. The Buddha never spoke even a hostile word against, the gay community. So yes, I do believe that if you look at the earliest teachings of the Buddha, this is where um, you'll find, clear, explicit invitations to be kind and inclusive and all of that. And I believe through history, we've had cultures that mingled with, religious uh, core religious beliefs and created um, something else, maybe something deviating from that core message of kindness and compassion. Um, One monk I love and follow once said, sometimes the Buddha is lost behind the screen of incense smoke. Yeah. So
Definitely. I guess how would you say we as Buddhist practitioners or we as animal advocates can work towards shifting the overall, I guess, world of Buddhism right now towards more towards compassion and towards this. I know that's obviously what we're trying to do at Dharma Voices for Animals in terms of compassion for animals. But do you have any thoughts or suggestions?
well, for me, I think it starts from the top. It goes from the top to the bottom. Whether we want it or not, monastic, the Sangha is very hierarchical. It's very much a pyramid with, senior monks at the top, teachers, people we follow and venerate, and then, junior monks at the bottom. So I do believe we should start with the abbots. We should start with the high-profile teachers, the Dalai Lama types,
Mm.
um, because if they accept this message of compassion, if they listen to it, um, then others will follow.
And I guess for folks here, how can people get involved with Dharma Voices for Animals if they want to become donors, they want to reach out and volunteer? Guess they should get in touch with you and
100%. I mean, um, please become a monthly donor of Dharma Voices for Animals. I think that would be the most impactful way in supporting the organization. Um, Giving is also very important in Buddhism. You could, I think, summarize Buddhism by talking about giving and how, the more you lose, the more you gain. There isn't place um, for happiness when you have ego, and, you know, shrinking yourself will give space to happiness. And that starts with giving, giving away. It's something freeing, it's something liberating, it's something incredibly meaningful. And I'm speaking, as a fundraiser for DVA, of course, but also as a donor myself. I do believe that giving is a sampling of, that greater happiness we all aspire to, which is nibbana. We're sampling it by, those small and big acts of giving, and we're taking always a step forward in the practice when we start the day with a giving heart. And so, yes, very important giving. I bring it always, that spirit of giving, that message of giving. I bring it in all of my practice, including meditation. It brings me lots of inspiration. So yeah, I don't feel, I always feel when I give to an organization, I always feel like I should be the one thanking them for this experience, for giving me the chance to make some good karma and feel this way. So yeah.
that's a really good perspective and way to look at it. I feel like a lot of the times talking about donations can be really awkward and it can be really hard to, because it does feel kind of like just give us money kind of thing, but it's not all about that. It is linked to Buddhist practice and it's about connecting and it's about having and building relationships and all of these different things, not just hand the money over.
Yes, uh, definitely. And that is key also, part of that building relationship um, is giving, there's a beautiful Buddhist teaching. It answers the question of what if you really love someone and you want to see them in your next life? And the answer to that is you should give with that person. That's the most, effective way to see them in your next life. And I found it just beautiful. And so, yeah,
It reminds me too of the one compassion meditation practice where you breathe in others' suffering and you breathe out compassion. I don't know if you're familiar, but it's very similar to that. You'd think that breathing in the suffering of others would make you feel heavy and weighted but after I do that practice, I always feel so light and so happy and joyful and feeling like I'm blowing my compassion back onto others sort of thing. And I think it's sort of the same with giving that, you're giving something away, but by giving these things away, you're feeling more full. Just very interesting.
yes, it's again part of that counterintuitive teaching, in Buddhism. How is giving away make you feel fuller and have a richer life? Um, yeah, and there is also the fact that giving back, or should I say, just giving, donating, will get you things back in your life. Again, I truly believe in that. I think that there was once um, a homeless man who came to the Buddha, very poor, and he asked, what can I do to become richer? And he said, you should give. um, of course, he did not have much to give, but what he had to give, he did. And so, yeah, you're getting back so much more from giving. I did not know about that meditation practice. Thank you for sharing, Katie. I will try it, maybe
Mm.
even this afternoon. And but there is a another meditation practice coming from the Buddha directly, where he invites us to reflect on our past um, gifts, our past donations, our past, acts of generosity in meditation. And, he says that it is conducive to peace and, to getting to those jhanas, which are, the deeper meditation. So, yes.
I'll have to try that one later. I guess this is a bit of a pivot, but in terms of things that you give to the Buddhist and the vegan community, I know that you have a podcast, and I was hoping you'd tell us a little bit more about that and what you focus on in your podcast and maybe what you've talked about and that sort of thing.
Of course. I I started podcasting. I started a podcast, a first podcast that was a complete fail. It was called the Arms Cross Podcast. And the intention behind it was, when you work in the nonprofit world, when you are exposed to vulnerable populations, you come across so many untold stories. And I've had this experience of just knocking on the door constantly of media platforms, of journalists, reporters, trying to shed light on those untold stories, on the sufferings of those vulnerable population, and you
Mm.
get ignored. I don't know what reporters are doing these days, but they're not really interested in the fate of um, vulnerable populations. I, I open the news sometimes and, I see videos from, social media or things, funny things or stories about celebrities. And I'm thinking, what are we missing, while we're concentrating, focusing on those stories, those more superficial stories. And so I thought, because I'm a man of action, I thought I will create my own media platform and shed light on those untold stories myself. And so I created the Arms podcast, and I invited Dr. Jens Volt, who is the owner of a chimp sanctuary in Quebec, Canada, where I'm based. Um, and I invited also a man who, Colin is his name, who was a slaughterhouse worker and a veterinarian student, and who
Mm,
became vegan. And those stories stuck with me. Those conversations I had with them, the episodes I recorded with them. And I thought, among all the social issues out there, maybe I should focus on the animal one because it's the one that gets the least, focus on mainstream media. Um,
mm,
in fact, there is an anti-vegan and anti-animal bias in the media. Um, uh, Many, media advertisers are part of, big ag, and so it's normal to see that a bias against veganism and the animal cause. But yeah, so those two people inspired me to just focus on the animal cause. And so I rebranded the podcast and it became the Vegan Report. And
mm,
now every week I release episodes on activism in the animal space. And I always try to find uh, stories or people that um, progress, expand, the conversation, that who are not afraid to experiment with new ideas, who are not afraid to be critical, and it's fun. It's fun to have daring conversations that
mm,
nobody will dare have in the movement, and play with ideas. I get lots of fun from it, and um, also I think it's doing lots of good in making activists think twice about how they're doing activism. And I think there's uh, a factor of uniting this movement because I'm welcoming so many different such a diversity of um, activist voices, and it's beautiful to see all of them uh, in the same platform.
mhm.
So yeah. Oh, hi, fellow Quebecer.
Yeah. And then sounds like there's some fans of your podcast already in the chat too.
Oh, really? Thank you so much for listening.
I guess I'd love to know what are some of the most exciting conversations you have had? Does anything particular come to mind?
Thank you so much for that question.
Yeah.
Because I'm a listener too, I'm not just, the podcaster hosting the conversation. I also want to listen to those kinds of conversations. Where should I start? I mean, I've welcomed Whispers Red on the podcast. If you like ASMR, you might know who Whispers Red is. She's a very famous ASMR artist and such a hypersensitive person who's attuned to the suffering of animals. She's a vegan and she's a sanctuary founder, but she has always been very, under the radar on that front. And so I think I was the first one to interview her on her veganism and her activism, and I was so happy to have the exclusive on that story because I also respect so much her work in the ASMR um, space. And, it's weird because I listened to maybe hours of her content on YouTube, and then to have her as a guest on the podcast felt unreal. I also recorded an episode about El Maari. So maybe you've come across that name if you're vegan. He's reportedly the first vegan who ever lived. And
Mm,
he has such a fascinating story because he's this Syrian poet and intellectual who lived during the Middle Ages. And he decided, um, inspired, by his own, to become vegan. And it created quite uh, a problem at the time. Um, uh, there were assassins that were, almost sent to kill him because of his radical ideas about not exploiting animals. Um, but yeah, it's such a strong legacy that he left behind, and his poems are so, reading them feels like reading animal liberation poems from this era. And I always, came across content about him from, vegan influencers or so on, who would just read from his Wikipedia page.
mm,
And I thought, okay, I want to find someone who understands Arabic and who studies for a living this great, amazing historical figure. And I found the only scholar in the world who studies El Mahari. He's even working right now on translating some of his uh, key work about animal liberation in English, never been translated,
wow.
still in Arabic and not, modern Arabic, in like old
Mm,
Arabic, difficult to decipher. And so he's doing that right now. And I, again, got an exclusive interview with him, which was so much fun, to discover who Al Mahari is. Um, so those two conversations come to mind for the podcast. Maybe I could add one more. Uh,
yeah, absolutely.
a third one, since we're Buddhists, always in tree. um, Bhikkhu Sonyo. So this is how I discovered Dharma Voices for Animals. I welcomed on my show a monk called Bhikkhu Sonyo, who is part of the lineage I follow, which is the Thai forest tradition. He's based in a monastery called the Bodhinyana Monastery in Western Australia. And he's vegan, and he's pretty much the only vegan monk in that monastery. Um, in fact, I contacted that monastery to get the abbot, who's Ajahn Brahm, this incredible uh, Buddhist monk that deserves, if you never listened to his Dharma talks, you should look him up on YouTube. Um, and they said he's not available, but we actually have a vegan monk in our monastery, and he's interested in being on your show. And during my conversation with Pico Sonio, I learned about DVA. He knew about Dharma Voices for Animals. And after that, I reached out to Dharma Voices for Animals and, offered my help, offered, my money. And yeah, the rest is history.
I love how that all comes together. It's such a small world. I guess how can people find your podcast? Is it on Spotify? Is it SoundCloud?
It's everywhere. It's on every podcast platform. So the Vegan Report podcast, you'll find it.
We have about 20 minutes left. I don't know if there's some folks in the audience who have any questions or curiosities. So I invite you to raise your hand or put anything in the chat if you want to ask a question or make a comment. Forrest. Forrest is our US director, if you don't know him yet.
Hey, morning, everyone. Thank you, Katie and Rayane, for coming on, and it's great to get to know you, Rayane. I'm working with you, but I didn't know some of your story there. So I was inspired by your sharing about how you're a man of action and you wanted to start your own podcast. I think that's amazing. Thank you for being vulnerable about how you found Buddhism. I'm kind of the same way. I was going through a really hard time, and a friend gave me a book on meditation, breathing in exactly what Katie was talking about. So that type of meta where you breathe in and out. And anyway, it was really good. But I wanted to ask you, because we have a lot of similarities. Sometimes, and I'm sure many of us on here feel this way, that as Buddhists, it's just so frustrating. Some days I'm like, ah, how do you keep your spirits up when sometimes maybe you get rejected for like from a podcast with someone that you were hoping to get, or a fundraising event? What could we all do? What do you do to keep our spirits up sometimes when we get a little beaten down by trying to make contact with Buddhists who are stubborn? That's my question.
Thank you, Forrest. And if you're working in the fundraising field, you get told no like 100 times. It's the most common answer. So, would you like to give? Are you interested in discussing this or that? And often enough, the answer is no. And you know, i I guess my attitude towards that is, first of all, I don't overthink it. And I think of it as a discipline. I think that's the secret to having a great discipline. You don't think, you just do, Um, if you start overthinking things, then, that's when the doing gets hard. So you have a hard task ahead and you just do it. You dive right in. You don't start thinking, oh, but then I'll feel this. And yeah. Um, then, you know, it's okay to feel bad. It's okay to uh, feel rejected and have those negative feelings. Um, they're passing through, and I try not to bother them. I'm the one who try not to disturb those, feelings. They're like clouds passing through, the sky. Um, if I don't wish for them to go away, I find that they go away much faster. And so I just carry on with those clouds in the sky. It's okay. I always keep a distance and some space through mindfulness with those negative feelings. I also remind myself that this is not personal. That famous teaching that could again summarize Buddhism is anatta, about non-self. So I always have this mantra of not me, not mine. This feeling is not mine, and this is not about me. This is about Ryan. And Ryan is this guy who does fundraising. And so I create that distance. And I try not to take it personal, and not make it an ego thing. Um, and then maybe one last uh, advice would be meditation, keeping that meditation practice. I try to meditate at least 30 minutes every day, every morning. Um, Sometimes it's uh, more like an hour every day, 30 minutes in the morning and then 30 minutes in the afternoon. that would be the ideal, but usually it's 30 minutes in the morning. And having that, practicing that meditation allows you to have a window into your mind, and to see things clearly. And, the meditation practice is not over once you open your eyes and start your day. It continues. You can adopt the same attitude as you had on the meditation mat then in your everyday life. And so, you focus on the breathing, you practice metta, you recall those uh, actions of generosity, of goodness that you have done in the past. Everything that you would do in meditation, you can practice also in everyday life. And it helps, it definitely helps, temper those negative feelings.
Thank you. That that is a great answer. And it looks like Cameron in the chat agrees. The feelings only bother you if you bother them.
Yeah, it reminds me of a story of a monk called Ajahn Chah, and they were practicing meditation in his monastery, and then there was a party in the village nearby, the monastery, and they were blasting like very loud music, and the monks came to him complaining, and his response was, why are you bothering the noise? Like, you're the one making a fuss and bothering the noise, so leave the noise alone. That was his attitude.
That's so funny. I feel like I want to try to adopt that in my everyday, especially with noise. It's like, oh, it's the lawnmower's going. It's fine. I'll stop bothering it. I see a hand from Julie Edwards.
Hi, you have a lovely energy. I have to say that. You're very, very peaceful. I can feel all this peace coming through the screen. But my question, and I apologize if this was covered in the first couple of minutes because I came in a little late. It says, meet development consultant. Is that your role within Dharma Voice for Animals? And if it is, what does that entail?
Of course. Well, yes, it is my role, and yes, development is a pretty abstract, term. Um, but yeah, what I do is fundraising. I inspire people to give to Dharma Voices for Animals, and it's called development because it's more than soliciting directly people for donations. For instance, it's creating a media tour. So right now, DVA is on a media tour of vegan and Buddhist podcasts. And this is, part of a strategy to, again, get more supporters on board with the mission. And so we'll have many appearances on very popular, media platforms in the Buddhism and veganism space. So that's more communication and marketing, but it's also very much fundraising. And so that's why, the word development is used, because it's truly an umbrella term for the multidisciplinary work of a fundraiser. And thank you so much for your kind words about having good energy. Yes, maybe it has to do with the fact that I was meditating not too long ago. So yes.
Yeah, I agree. Right, and you have very, very great energy. Very thankful to work with you. Get to experience that regularly.
Same, Katie.
Guess I'm wondering, Ryan, do you have any like last nuggets of wisdom or anything remaining that you would like to share with us that hasn't been covered yet?
Well, maybe some words of encouragement, I think maybe it can get hard as an activist, as someone who cares about animals, as a Buddhist even on the path who's practicing every day, because you don't see results, or you don't see results coming, um, you know, quickly enough. And I think we're not doing this in vain, that this will bear fruit, that we should have this optimistic, it's not even a question of optimism, it's realism that it will bear fruits. It's just a question of time, a question of patience, a question of continuing to persevere. And another thing I heard from a monk recently was, we're working for our wages as Buddhist practitioners. Uh, we haven't gotten paid yet, but we will. In the future we will, and we just need to be patient. And since we're Buddhists, we should be champions of patience. So lucky us. And yeah, just to remind everyone, and myself included, that our actions will bear fruit. We just need to wait for them to, yeah. So a beautiful world where animals feel safe or safer, is for tomorrow, is right around the corner. We'll see it coming. Our efforts will bear fruit again. Yeah.
I'll just share a couple really quick general Dharma Voices for Animals updates. This is really exciting. We just launched a store that is now live on Bonfire. So if you like our logo or our new rebranding, you can get that on a shirt or a mug or a tote bag. So I'll put the link to our store in the chat if you're interested in repping some Dharma Voices for Animals gear. 100% of the profit after printing goes directly to us, so it benefits our work. And you're also helping spread the word when you wear our logo and our design. You're sharing with other people who we are. And I guess with that, thank you so much, Ryan. It's been a pleasure as always talking to you, and I'm really happy that our supporters get to know a little more about you.
Of course, thank you so much, everyone, for having attended this, and for your support to DVA. Thank you.